This is CBC Vancouver News.
If you want to protect a scarce and valuable asset, put it somewhere safe.
$500 million to help protect rental stock in BC. What difference will it make in our pricey, tight markets?
I think we as an airport community, airlines, airports, ground handlers, ground transportation, we could do a better job of communicating proactively.
Get us home! Get us home!
Airport and airline leaders are hauled on the carpet over the holiday travel chaos. So what will actually change?
She always thanked me. Arigato.
And 113 years of perspective. The person believed to be Canada's oldest has died in BC. Good evening, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. In a province where rents are sky high and supply very tight, the BC government is offering up a lot of cash to protect renters. $500 million to help nonprofits buy older rental stock. Mira Baines has more on the plan and some concerns.
It's a move to insulate tenants from the ever-rising rents across BC. BC's Premier says it's one solution to the growing problem of affordability, a move to protect renters from big business.
Increasingly, we're seeing activity across Canada and in British Columbia of large international corporations buying up rental buildings, speculating to earn investment income on homes that people count on affordable rents.
The Rental Protection Fund will give nonprofit housing organizations one-time grants so they can buy affordable rental buildings. Key nonprofit organizations are tapped to help with the plan.
It'll be managed by this external group of our not-for-profit partners with strong expertise in this sector.
They include the Aboriginal Housing Management Association, the BC Nonprofit Housing Association, and the Cooperative Housing Federation of BC. Some critics are questioning how far the $500 million fund will go. A community land trust was able to buy this Burnaby housing co-op to protect seniors and low-income renters, but it cost about $130 million. Still, experts say the fund can be used creatively.
There may be a contribution that brings the cost down, and then the nonprofit purchasing the building will have a mortgage, and that mortgage will be paid back over time through the stream of rental income.
The BC Liberals question whether relying on sellers and goodwill to buy properties is a reliable strategy.
The Premier suggested that there are a number of sellers that would give preferential treatment to those buildings that would remain as rentals, but we can't guarantee that.
She says there may be money available for the purchase of an older building, but is concerned about costs to maintain them.
There doesn't seem to be a mechanism for assisting in helping to cover those ongoing maintenance costs.
The Rental Protection Fund is expected to be operational in the coming months.
The idea behind this initiative is breathtakingly simple. If you want to protect a scarce and valuable asset, put it somewhere safe.
The province is also looking at legislation on bidding rules to allow nonprofits first refusal for building purchases. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.
To another housing story now. At least one UBC student hit by a major theft at a residence at Point Grey says the university's response has left them vulnerable. As we told you last night, hundreds of keys and cards with personal information were reportedly taken from the Thunderbird residence on Monday, where more than 630 students live in condo-style apartments. UBC Student Housing says it's replacing more than 400 locks, but...
So my two main concerns were, one, that, someone could come into my bedroom with a key, and this is something that is a concern for, I think, over 600 students that are affected by this. And my second concern is also identity theft. We had, enough personal information to open a bank account, and then some that was stolen.
RCMP says it arrested a man in his 30s who's not a student. He was released and is due in court later. UBC officials say they are looking at offering credit monitoring to affected students. Several airlines offered their apologies to Canadians today after travel chaos gripped the holidays. In hearings in Ottawa, the companies admit their service was unacceptable. And as Ashley Burke tells us, two of the loudest MPs are from BC.
In December, Sunwing passengers were stranded for days in Mexico, fed up to learn that just before midnight, their flight was canceled yet again. It's just one of the chaotic scenes from this holiday travel season that airlines today had to answer for.
The bottom line is, we know we could have done better.
Sunwing, Air Canada, and WestJet all questioned by MPs about how they could have gotten it so wrong.
When is it ever acceptable that we have passengers sitting on aircraft for up to 12 hours, and in some circumstances over 12 hours?
That was unacceptable in many, many levels.
The airlines blame bad weather and address complaints that kept people in the dark.
Our guest communication was lacking, so we're going to do a better job of that.
In total, WestJet said it canceled 1,600 flights over the holidays. Sunwing canceled 67, including suspending all service from Saskatchewan.
How did you possibly book travel for Canadians when you did not have crews or planes lined up to service them? This is a catastrophic failure.
In the midst of the storm, with the inability to position, with the inability to recover from the various locations, duty day limitations, we failed to deliver to the level we had expected to.
That response not enough for some travelers who say they felt abandoned.
No, it's certainly not enough. Being demoralized and not answered to, and actually verbally assaulted, and communication breakdown completely to the point where it was impossible to get a hold of anybody. That's completely unacceptable for any business.
The Minister of Transport also questioned by the opposition about why he isn't doing more to protect passengers' rights, including compensation.
The air passenger protection regime that you've created has massive loopholes in it. You could fly a 747 through these things, and we see airlines clearly exploiting those loopholes in order to avoid paying passengers the compensation that they're due.
The regime is quite strong. I know you've had experts tell you that it was stronger, much stronger than the U.S. regime.
Sunwing confirms it's now dealing with 7,000 complaints tied to the holiday travel, and that includes requests for compensation or refunds after some people say they had to pay out of pocket to find their own way home. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
YVR, meanwhile, is also pledging to do better after thousands of travelers were stranded there and hundreds of flights canceled or delayed so close to Christmas. Like the airlines, YVR Airport Authority President Tamara Vrooman blamed the disruptions on extreme weather, saying again that while the airport was prepared, more snow fell faster than they expected. Airport operations were ground to a complete halt December 20th in what's typically the busiest travel week of the year.
And I was on the floor with passengers day and night, and I heard many of them that just simply didn't have the information they needed to make an informed decision. I think we as an airport community, airlines, airports, ground handlers, ground transportation, we can do a better job of communicating proactively so people can make an informed decision.
The airport says it plans to overhaul its weather forecasting and communications coordination. A review of the holiday chaos will be launched next week, and you can share your input. We have more on a major hit to jobs in BC. Forestry giant Canfor permanently closing the pulp line at one of its Prince George mills, cutting 300 jobs. It's the latest in a series of mill closures. The province has promised to reform the sector, but as Michelle Gassoub reports, experts and critics warn with timber in short supply, time is running out.
300 jobs lost in Prince George, only the latest in a series of cuts for Canfor. Just last week, the company said weak economic conditions and a lack of available fibre meant more curtailments across BC, affecting workers in Prince George, Chetwynd, Vanderhoof, and Houston. And experts warn more cuts could be coming.
It probably differs from mill to mill for the actual reasons. One of the fundamental problems is that we're running out of timber.
So how did we get here? The destructive pine beetle infestation gave license for mass cutting to stop the spread. That, combined with some of the worst wildfire seasons on record, has led to a permanent contraction of BC's forestry sector.
We do have a shortage of timber and feedstock, so we need to get more jobs out of the trees that we do have, and that will only come through innovation and using materials wisely.
But creating jobs while mills are facing closures will be an uphill battle for the province, which is focusing on getting more value out of forests by reducing cheap exports in favor of what they call value-added products.
With the value-added industry, they need to have lumber at a price that they can then have a product that they can sell in a competitive environment. So the question is whether or not they can do that with the current economics that are operating within the forests.
Some have raised the alarm that clear-cutting and exporting raw lumber at the current rate is unsustainable as the sector continues to feel the effects of climate change.
I think anybody that thinks otherwise is fooling themselves. Anybody that thinks there's magic wood out in the forests of British Columbia that you can just go and harvest and bring in and solve all the problems.
The province now deploying a crisis response team to Prince George and promising $185 million in supports for workers affected by cuts across the sector. Michelle Kassoub, CBC News, Vancouver.
A chemical used in the processing of pulp and paper is causing concern for marine mammals on our coast. 4NP is found in toilet paper and soap. Now it's showing up in whale carcasses found here. Scientists from UBC, the Ministry of Agriculture, and Oceans Canada tested the tissue and found 4NP made up almost half of the total pollutants they identified. Researchers say it can affect reproduction and growth in mammals.
Know that the southern resident are a small population that are endangered, right? So question lingering the long-term survival. And this is kind of contaminant burdens that we are observing here. It's just part of a much bigger problem that include other kind of multi-stressors factors like climate change, the availability of Chinook salmon, which is the main prey item for the southern resident killer whale.
4NP can leak into the ocean through sewage treatment plants. To other news now, a 7-year-old girl is in hospital with serious injuries after she was hit by a car on the North Shore last night. Police say both speed and alcohol may have been factors. The child was crossing a street in West Vancouver with her family when a vehicle traveling down Marine Drive hit her. The 20-something driver stayed on scene and is cooperating with police. The RCMP's Collision Investigation Unit was called in. Anyone who saw the crash or has information is asked to contact West Vancouver Police. The family of 3 people found dead inside a Surrey home earlier this week is now asking for privacy. That request comes after homicide investigators identified them publicly. On January 9th, Mounties discovered 3 bodies inside this home in Fraser Heights. While the police case continues, family and friends are asking media and the public to respect their privacy and not share photos or information about the victims. An update now on the trial of Dr. Albert de Villiers. He once served as the top physician at Interior Health. He's now been accused of sexually abusing a child. The trial started Tuesday in Grand Prairie. The court heard from the 11-year-old boy that his family became friends with de Villiers in 2018. De Villiers acknowledged he developed a close relationship with the child and overstepped. But on the stand, he denied sexually abusing the child. De Villiers faces 3 more charges from a different underage complainant. The rainstorms that have pummeled California this week have now arrived on our coast. Environment Canada estimates 100 millimeters of rain will fall before tomorrow. Some localized flooding is expected, and Vancouver Island could see strong winds causing power outages. Avalanche Canada also says the storm could worsen slide conditions, already the most dangerous in decades. The risk has been raised to high for the coastal and island regions, and people are asked to think twice before going into the backcountry. The CBC's Claire Palmer has more on the rain from Nanaimo.
An already wet start to the new year in BC is rolling on without a break. A strong low brewing in the Pacific is set to bring a lot more rain to Vancouver Island. Some areas on the west coast of the island are forecasted to get up to 200 millimeters. That brings worries about flooding, especially from the Pentledge River in Comox. BC Hydro says it's tracking the storm closely and getting prepared.
If there's any risk of potential isolated flooding, we'll see if that happens tomorrow morning, but we will certainly be reducing flows from the dam, and we'll just see what happens downstream.
For some people on the island, it's enough already.
One of my thoughts on the rain, it can go away anytime, just like the snow. Yeah, it's terrible. I mean, it hasn't even let up at all.
For those without homes, it's even more challenging.
It really sucks. It's really hard to live outside with it like this, because it's like you go through clothes like crazy because you can't afford to dry it all. So every day, like, you have to be soaked just to like have to possibly get some dry clothes, hopefully to go to sleep in. And it's just like everybody kicks you out everywhere, so there's nowhere to go to keep dry. And if there is, you gotta be sneaky, and it's like, it's just awful.
The storm's punch may also depend on any melt of the snowpack.
We're ready for it. We have our modeling. We're our forecaster is a hydrologist, so we'll manage through this.
Watson urges people to be extra careful around rivers, streams, and coastlines that are at higher levels. The rain is set to ease slightly on Friday, but won't really stop until Saturday afternoon. Claire Palmer, CBC News, Nanaimo.
If you're a smartwatch user and plan to hit the slopes this winter, you might want to check your watch settings before you go. Kelowna RCMP have recently responded to 6 false 911 calls from smartwatches. They were all unintentional, though. Smartwatches have an SOS function that reacts to a wearer when they fall, and it automatically contacts emergency crews. Police are asking smartwatch users to turn off the fall detection function when skiing and boarding, because they'll probably fall. A popular Vancouver cat cafe has gotten a new lease on its 9 lives, fundraising more than $100,000 online. Katoro Cafe passed the 6-figure goal just a week after asking for help. The East Broadway business has been struggling to bounce back from COVID. It says debts to care for the cats may have forced them to close, but caring cat owners from across Canada stepped up to help.
The community just came together and really pulled through and showed that they want us to stay. And it's really great that we'll be able to continue our efforts in 2023.
Along with the feline friends, the cafe employs about 20 people. The funds raised will go toward the cafe's debts, as we said, as well as essentials like food and vet care for the kittens going forward.
She always believed in achievement. If you try hard, you'll be #1.
She lived 113 years on this earth. Advice more than a century old after this. And hello to everyone watching our commercial-free live stream. Thanks for being here. It's a success story that sparked conversations about public space in cities across our region. Yesterday, we showed you how North Vancouver's Shipyards District has become one of our region's most popular. But did you know other waterfronts in our region also want to expand? Here's Justin McElroy again.
When North Vancouver Mayor Linda Buchanan talks with other politicians about their cities, the shipyards inevitably come up.
All the time. All the time.
The mix of event spaces and stores, ocean views and walking paths is something that other local leaders look at with admiration.
Mayor Johnson from New West, he's actually bringing his council here in the next little while for a visioning session. I'm going to be doing a tour for them.
For New Westminster's mayor, the reason for a field trip is obvious.
The shipyards gives us maybe something to shoot towards, because I cannot emphasize enough, it is an incredible piece of urban design.
New West has waterfront parks next to commercial outlets, but so do lots of communities, from Port Moody's Rocky Point Park to the North Shore's Deep Cove. But only the shipyards seem to combine the two in a truly dynamic way.
Pier Park is pretty good at being a bit of a passive use space, where people can come and have a picnic and enjoy the view, or hang out with friends. But it's not really a gathering space as such.
And other municipalities have waterfront land that isn't doing much of anything.
This could be a primo public gathering space where we have opportunities for show stages and events and food truck festivals.
In Delta, there's a new plan for the Ladner area and a clear inspiration.
Obviously, that's a much larger site than what we have here, but that's a great example to lean to see if we can create our own version of the shipyards here in Ladner Village.
At the same time, there are local concerns of ruining a heritage area, with the nearby rezoning proposal already proving contentious.
Change is always hard when you're talking about redeveloping a space that people have grown up with, that people are accustomed to. So it's nice to be able to point to something that is better by all standards and say, we can have this too.
Of course, if it was easy, plenty of other municipalities would already have it. Justin McElroy, CBC News, Delta.
At 113 years of age, the person thought to be Canada's oldest has died. Shige Mineshiba died on Friday in the Vancouver condominium she shared with her daughter. Her longevity was just one part of a life that saw immense personal and global change. Liam Britton has Shige's story.
In her 113 years, Shige Mineshiba witnessed wars, technological and social change, and the lives of countless family members begin and end. Still living in Vancouver is her daughter, 82-year-old Kyoko.
She always believed in achievement. Achievement, if you try hard, you'll be number one.
Shige was born on a farm near Nagoya, Japan in 1909.
There was 8 different type of fruits tree in her farmyard. Orange, peach, oh yeah, anything.
She finished high school and worked, including in insurance. She married, and she and her husband adopted baby Kyoko. Kyoko moved to Toronto in the late 1960s. Shige and her husband joined her on the move to Canada. Shige and Kyoko then moved to Vancouver. For the last 20 years or so, they've lived in this Mount Pleasant condo. Shige died there Friday. The death certificate lists advanced age as the cause. A number of newspapers and online resources say that at the time of her death, Shige was Canada's oldest person. Now, there's no official body that confirms this, but still, 113 years is no small feat. How is it that some people live this long? Dr. Roger Wong is an expert on geriatric medicine. He says genetics are part of the answer, but long-lived people tend to exercise, eat well, and have plenty of social outlets.
Healthcare professionals, what we try to work towards is helping, supporting individuals in the community to live not only for longer, but leading meaningful lives. And I think that is the important piece.
Kyoko says for her mom, an attitude of appreciation was important.
And she always thanked me. Arigato. When the community nurse comes in, she goes, arigato, arigato, and then she goes, that's a prayer.
And don't forget a cup of matcha tea every morning, not too hot.
See, it's not bitter.
No. Liam Britton, CBC News, Vancouver.
Good advice. Here's a live shot of Whistler Olympic Park. Another wet day across the South Coast. More to come. Johanna Wagstaffe will have your BC-wide forecast next.
These people are desperate. They've tried traditional forms of therapy. Some have had bypass surgery, and some others have been told they need bypass surgery. Still others are here because they believe it will just make them feel better. What they're doing is getting chelation therapy. It's a controversial treatment where the drug ethylene diamine tetracetic acid, known as EDTA, is injected intravenously, and according to its proponents, it cleans out the arteries by attaching itself to elements like lead, calcium, and zinc in the blood and flushes them out of the system. Some people who are taking this treatment think it saved their lives.
It was bad enough that the family had got together and we'd already made my funeral arrangements. I mean, it was that close.
It's not all in my head because pain is a very obvious thing that you remember from time to time.
Wally Garrett is part of a growing number of British Columbia residents who are making the trek to Bellingham, Washington to get chelation. He'd had a series of heart operations but seemed to be getting worse.
There was a point where I could walk for 1 block, and then my legs were severely sore. I couldn't continue any farther. If I did, I'd fall in a heap. After chelation, I'm able to walk 3 to 5 miles.
Chelation therapy is accepted as a treatment for lead poisoning, but it's not accepted by the medical establishment as a means of cleaning the arteries. They need proof from scientific studies.
If it was wonderful and miraculous, it certainly will not stay hidden for long and will be accepted.
Even medical practitioners who do use it admit they don't know how it works. They claim it cleans the arteries and so improves blood flow.
How it is improving blood flow, we're not sure. We don't know if it's because it's removing low levels of lead or calcium or nickel or exactly why. But, and that is part of the controversy.
But for BC's Ken Jones, how it works or why doesn't matter. He was told he'd have to wait up to 8 months for a triple bypass after he'd had a heart attack, so he tried chelation therapy.
Well, it means I can play golf now, and I can walk 5 miles a day, which I couldn't do before. So I feel that it certainly helped me.
But the Canadian Cardiovascular Society is concerned. Its position is that there's no scientific evidence of benefit from chelation therapy, and in fact it warns against the possibility of toxicity. So until there's evidence supporting chelation, the controversy continues as to whether it's a modern miracle or a false hope. Layla Paul, CBC News.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
Ring in the Year of the Rabbit with CBC Vancouver at the annual Chinatown Spring Festival Parade on Sunday, January 22nd. Join us along the parade route and celebrate the Lunar New Year with fun and festivities for the whole family. Enjoy traditional lion and dragon dances, marching bands, and martial arts performances. Learn more at cbc.ca/BC.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace, installing the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
She's back in studio. Meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe joins us now. Joe, good to have you back.
Thank you.
We have a lot of people, as we heard in Claire's report from the island, elsewhere, wondering what the timeline on this latest storm is.
Yeah, fair enough, especially with the island really seeing the bullseye of this atmospheric river that keeps on keeping on as we speak, Dan, but I would say we're more than halfway through. Rainfall warnings still in place across the south coast. This is how much more rain we can expect. So Metro Vancouver, the North Shore, West Vancouver, and the Tri-Cities, 10 to 30 millimeters more through the overnight and into tomorrow. But for the west side of the island and Howe Sound, we're talking up to 80 millimeters more. And that's why the bullseye for part of the island may be upwards, if not over 200 millimeters when all is said and done. That rain is still coming in from the southwest. So there's quite a strong rain shadow. If you're watching from Victoria, Southern Gulf Islands, you know this has been a very different story for you. This is all that same atmospheric river that was pummeling central and southern sections of California, but this low developing out in the Pacific sort of redirected that stream northward. So we're taking the brunt of it on Vancouver Island, but notice how it is giving a bit of a break, this new direction to central and southern sections of California, the hardest hit areas. That low is going to break down as we head into the weekend. I'll show you that in a quick moment, but first, getting through that rain overnight tonight and tomorrow. Still looking at the possibility, that white showing up near Tofino, that's the 100 millimeter bullseye on top of what you've already seen. The oranges, another possibly 60 millimeters, but things are going to ease as we head into Saturday. As the slow sort of breaks down, we get one more surge of moisture moving in for the weekend. Look for a sunny break in Williams Lake tomorrow. We're really not seeing all of that rain cross over the mountain ranges, but I know Prince George, you had some sunshine today. You'll lose that tomorrow. So I've still got the rain in the forecast after the atmospheric rain river eases, but it is more showery for Saturday and Sunday. Maybe even a glimmer of the sun for us, Dan, but no guarantees yet. It is a wet and mild forecast.
If you could move just slightly, we want to see what it's in. Oh, there, Thursday. There's something to look forward to.
I should have given you the thank you for allowing. Yeah, there it is.
Just peeking over your shoulder. Yeah. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
That's your late news for Thursday. Thanks for joining us. For news at any hour, check our website, cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news will be tomorrow morning at 5:30 on CBC Radio 1 from our colleagues in Victoria. And I will be here tomorrow night at 6 p.m. for your supper hour news. We'll see you then. Good night.